Hello.
Hey, Ophelia, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you, Charlie.
Hey, Charlie.
Good morning, all.
Good morning. Hey, Terence. Good to see
Hi.
you. I am admitting people as fast as I can here.
Great.
Charlie.
Well, there he is. Governor, how are you, sir?
Good, everybody. Good.
All right.
Hey, look at everybody.
Hi.
Morning.
Titan.
All right. We still got a few people coming on in.
All right. How's the weather today in Norfolk?
It's always sunny and mild in Norfolk. I'm sure it's the same in Northern Virginia.
We have been the 90s this week. It's hot as
Yeah, no, it was pretty muggy down here towards the end. Yeah,
I was gonna say it's still steamy today.
yeah.
Yeah, it's steamy up here.
All right.
Where's the weather?
We're going to have, let's see, got a few more. All right. Well, I can, I guess, get this thing started while I continue to admit people into the room. So keep in mind, everybody, do try and keep yourself on mute while things are being said so we don't get a lot of feedback and things like that. And with that said, I want to first say good morning to everybody. You know, as you can see with our wonderful special guest, former Governor Terry McAuliffe. Got to say today is June 6th, anniversary of D-Day. And back then, being an anti-fascist was actually a good thing, I suppose. But, you know, this has been a difficult week on top of a few difficult months. And our work here on the committee does have to continue. But before we get going, I do want to take a moment of silence to remember, you know, what's been going on in the country. First, I want to point out or remember one of our longtime committee activists and precinct captains passed away, and we want to bring condolences to his family, Dr. H. Marks Richard. He was a stalwart, and we're going to miss him dearly here on the committee. Next, we do want to take a moment of silence to remember the African-American men and women who have died for merely being who they are, Black in America. Their numbers are too high, and I'm incapable here this morning of naming them all, but we must remember Trayvon Martin, who died merely walking while Black. Ahmaud Arbery, who was killed jogging while Black. Philando Castile, who was killed for driving while Black. Tamir Rice, who was playing while Black. And Breonna Taylor, who was sleeping while Black. Then, of course, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, Freddie Gray, and, of course, George Floyd. All unarmed Black men who were killed while being placed into custody. But, you know, President Obama said in his statement this week that we do get the government we elect. And that is a blaring reminder why we do what we do here at the Norfolk City Democratic Committee to elect Democrats to all levels of office. That will bring about the progressive change that hopefully will sweep across the country, just as it has swept across the Commonwealth in the last few years. So with that said, if we can take a moment and bow our head. All right, thank you, everybody. At this time, if there are any, if you want to ask a question to be recognized, remember down at the bottom, there's a little raise your hand icon. So raise your hand, you'll come up to the top of my screen so I can unmute you and get your question in. But also we can take that opportunity, if you are a first-time visitor here today, go ahead and raise that hand and we'll give you a shout out and we welcome you to our monthly breakfast. We hope you'll become a regular, and of course, join our committee and move so we can get this thing done come November. They said the most critical election, and this time I think everybody means it. With that said, this is alphabetical order, so forgive me, but I want to now recognize the elected officials who are in the room. And going down, we have, oops, I just blew right by, let's see, we got Congressman Scott, as always. Thank you very much for being on the call.
It's alphabetical by first name.
Well, I think I blew by Andria McClellan, so I think I messed up. Let me enlarge that so I can see it easier. All right, there we go. Now I can see it a lot easier. All right, Andria McClellan, as I said, City Council. I see Dawn Hester, Treasurer of Norfolk. Thanks for joining. As I said, Congressman Scott, as always. Let's see. Come on, slide on down. Deborah, see who else we got?
Joseph's iPad is Joe Lindsey.
All right. Hey, Joe. And I got a couple of Nancy, so I'm going to assume one of those is Nancy Guy, delegate. And we're almost to the bottom. All right. Well, if I missed you, feel free to come forward and offer it up here. Oh, Jay Jones. I'm getting ready to admit Jay Jones right now. So with that, to say a few things before we get to Governor McAuliffe. Bobby, take it away. What you got? Oh, let me unmute you.
Yep, thank you. I got
There
you.
you go.
Thank you. We're working hard in Washington. We're putting together a policing bill. We expect to pass it in the House by the 4th of July. It will be revealed, introduced probably on Monday. We're still working, trying to push the Senate into passing the HEROES Act, which has a lot of provisions, one of which is extending the unemployment compensation. It has contact tracers. It has the OSHA requirement, requires OSHA to come up with the standards in businesses to protect workers from airborne infectious diseases. There's an interesting difference between how Democrats view workers on the work site in this pandemic and how the Republicans want to respond. Democrats say we want OSHA to get in there and make the workplace safer so you don't get infected. If you do get infected, if you're a federal employee, we want it workers' compensation so you can get wages and lost wages and health care paid. You want paid leave. You want to make sure the treatment for COVID-19 is covered. That's how the Democrats respond to workers on the work site. The only thing the Republicans have offered to protect for workers on the work site is liability protection for the business owner so that they don't have to pay a dime for what you can prove they owe. It's just a difference. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look forward to to Terry's remarks. He's gonna inspire us to make sure we vote. A lot of this police stuff, we remind people, is political. Police didn't fall out of the sky. They were appointed through the political system. And because we have elected good people in Norfolk, we have a good police force and we don't have the problems that other people have. And if a policeman messes up, it's Greg Underwood who'll make the decision on charges, not somebody we never heard of. So we can have confidence that the right response will be made. So it's because Democrats work so hard to get the right people elected that we don't have the same problems that they have in other cities. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. Joe Lindsey, you got something you want to offer? If you're on the call?
Charlie, I'm just excited to hear from our former governor and future probably governor, Terry McAuliffe. I believe he's got some very exciting and on point things to offer about the Biden campaign. We have to put all the work we can into getting Trump out of office. I believe he's just ruining the nation, with his policies, his politics, and it starts there, and everything else follows. So, there are things that we're trying to do on the state level. There are things we're trying to do on a local level. But I think it's got to start with making a change as to who's in the presidency.
Amen. Amen. Jay Jones.
Well, good morning, everybody. I echo the sentiments of Delegate Lindsey. It's good to see you all. Glad that everybody is safe and happy and healthy. Like I said last time, we are going to get through this. Stay with us because we're going to have updates about what the special session looks like, when that's going to happen, whether it's only COVID and finance related or whether we're going to expand the scope. Obviously, it's been a challenging 10 or 14 days with what we've seen in Virginia country, but I think we're using this moment to move in the right direction. So please don't let the next news cycle capture your attention and take our efforts away from what we've been doing. We've got some really great stuff cooking in the General Assembly. And I also look forward to hearing from Governor McAuliffe. We're happy to have him with us this morning. And Charlie, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, my friend. Thank you. And good luck on the AG thing. And was it one of those Nancy guy? You want to say hi?
I'll say hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good morning to everybody. It's always a pleasure to be with the Norfolk Democrats. Now is a good time for politicians to be listening, so I'm just here to listen this morning.
All right. Thanks, Nancy.
Governor McAuliffe and everybody else.
Good. Andrea, want to say hello?
Good morning. Thanks, Charlie. Just wanted to, you probably read about some of the actions that City Council took this past week. We have announced our plans for removing the Confederate statue, finally. That will come later this summer. We have to go through the steps outlined by the General Assembly, but we are moving forward on that. I'm also really proud of Mayor Kenny Alexander for standing up a commission on social equity and economic opportunity. I will be vice chair of that, focusing on things that affect so many of our citizens in terms of getting jobs, getting housing, internet connectivity, et cetera. So really, really excited about that as well. And then lastly, I just wanted everybody an invitation to join us, the mayor, the chief of police, Larry Boone. There's a prayer march that's going to be leaving from City Hall at 3 p.m. on Sunday. And please wear your mask and practice social distancing, but I'm looking forward to being there. And Governor McAuliffe, I hope you have your pups in the room today. And if you do, you definitely need to introduce them. They're always the star of the show.
They're around here somewhere.
All right. I didn't miss anybody, did I? Oh, wait. All right. With that said, he obviously doesn't need a lot of introduction. His resume is impressive as a businessman, author of a couple of great books, former chair of the DNC, and of course, our former governor. I remember when you ran an 09 governor, first time around when you said, I'm going to offer some bold ideas, and if people vote for me, great. And then you said, well, they didn't. But you finally got it around the second time, and you'd had a great administration. So thank you with that. But before I turn it over to you, I have discovered here that you are not the only McAuliffe on the call. And is there another McAuliffe that wants to chime in?
There is indeed. Good morning,
Look at you.
And good morning, Terry.
Good morning.
Greetings.
Oh my goodness, from Ireland.
How are you? How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
We're good.
Oh.
Not as warm as it is with you.
How is Dublin today?
Dublin is cold and dull.
Cold
but
today, but otherwise
you
good.
could send some of this sunshine over to us. We'd
Make
be
the
very
English
grateful.
hold up a Guinness beer.
Wow. all the bars are closed.
Yeah.
Closed.
That's a
So
kill.
look, if we don't get over to lend a hand because of everything that's happening, we will be working here with the Dems abroad to make sure that it's Biden in November.
All right. Thanks, Amir. Thanks, Pat. Yeah,
Thank
Terry,
you.
I couldn't help but let them know you were going to be on the chat because Pat and Amir are dear friends.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
All right. With that said, take it away, Governor.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Charlie, thank you for putting this together, and to all the electeds who are here and all the great organizers. Honored to speak with you this morning. We've got a lot of things to talk about today. We got a very important election coming up. We're in a very difficult time in our country. Obviously, COVID and Trump totally screwing that up. And then, of course, what we're seeing on the streets of America today because the insensitivity of Trump and everything that's going on. I could not agree with Congressman Scott more. It's about who you elect, then has governance over these police forces. So the more great Democrats we elect at the local level, the better off we are going to be as a nation. And we have done that in Norfolk. So first of all, my hats off to everybody on this call who has worked so hard as we go forward. As Joe Lindsey mentioned, this is probably the most important election of all time. Many of you have watched me on television for 40 years saying, oh, this is the most important election. I believed it when I said it then, folks, but truly it is really true today. And we're in a very, let me walk through the Biden campaign. Many of you called, how do we help? In addition to Biden, we got to make sure we get Elaine Luria back in office. We got to get Abigail Spanberger back in office. We have two really key congressional races in Virginia that we've got to spend some time on and focus on. But I feel very good about where they are. But many of you called, wanted to get help. I think probably next week, we will be rolling out the Biden staff structure and what political structure here in the state. So I think we'll get up and running next week. You'll probably see that. We have spent this time, I've spent most of my time the last 3-4 months working with the vice president to really prepare from the primary to the general, you know, making all those positions. I remind everybody, we're in a very good position because we had such an early nomination. In June of 2008 is when Hillary Clinton exited the campaign. In July of 2016, Senator Sanders exited the campaign. And here we were early April, and everybody was out. Everybody had endorsed Joe Biden. This is the earliest we have ever come together as a party to get organized and unified. We had just announced the big joint fundraising agreement, which is critical for the state parties because that's the operation of the split. That was just announced last week. We already have 25 states signed up. I am very proud. Virginia was our first state to sign up. So that process is all, you know, being put together. Organizing, something I was very involved in. And last December, I was very concerned that we were going to have a long nomination fight and or potentially a contested convention. That would have been disastrous for us. Trump had raised so much money. We could not wait until July in Milwaukee to begin to build our field organizations. So I went out with a guy, Paul Tooze, a group of us went out and started a thing called Organizing Together. We raised about $18 million. And what we have done since January is we have hired 600 organizers, the best organizers in the country. So when a presidential campaign ended, we hired them in Organizing Together. They are now, the 600 are already in the 6 battleground states. So we've done this earlier, something we've never done at a party. And on about middle of June, we will transfer all of those folks over to the Biden campaign. So the good news, this time period that we're in right now, we have been preparing for the general election, you know, getting everything in place. Right now, today, the 6 battleground states, we all know what they are: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, and Arizona. Those are the top 6. I'm not saying that other states won't be added, or Georgia or other places, but today, those are the 6 main states that we are focused on. The good news today, and the election is not today, we're up in all 6 states today. As we all know, in 2016, we lost 3 states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, by 77,000 votes. And in those 3 states, 350,000 people voted for the third party candidate, Jill Stein or Gary Johnson. We don't have that issue this year going into the election. So, and we've also registered hundreds of thousands of new voters in those 3 states since the 2016 election. In addition, 92 million people, folks, did not vote in 16, thought Hillary was going to win, or I don't like Hillary, whatever it may have been. They just stayed home. They woke up the next day after that 2016 election and said, holy cow, how did this possibly happen? And what you've seen since then is tremendous turnout across the country. You saw it in Virginia in 17 elections, huge historic turnout. You saw it in 18 across the country. We won the U.S. House of Representatives. We won 7 new governors. We won 8 state new chambers across America. It was just a huge change. And then we saw it in Virginia, 19 with both chambers, and then 20. Look at our primary folks in Virginia. We were up 68%. That is almost statistically impossible, but it happened. My point is tremendous momentum, enthusiasm. People who didn't vote last time clearly are coming out. And we're not going to have crazy Jim Comey coming out 12 days before the election with that ridiculous thing he did. And so the good news is we've got a lot of great pieces on the plate. We're working hard. The money is going fine. People ask about, well, Trump's got so much. We clearly are going to have plenty to do what we need to do in those 6 states, but we always need to continue to do it. But we've built the organizing on the ground. We're building the digital today, which Trump has a huge lead on. He's got like 88 million Twitter followers. So that's a big emphasis for us. People say all the time, oh, we got to get the vice president out of the basement. He's fine in the basement. 2 people see him a day, his 2 body people. That's it. And let Trump keep doing what Trump's doing. It's hard for the vice president to break through. You've got the COVID crisis. He's not a governor, doesn't have a National Guard. He's not the president, doesn't have the briefing room. He needs to come out strategically. And when he says something like he did on race relations 2 days ago, it needs to have a big impact, thoughtful, and that's what we're preferring that he actually do at the time. He's doing a lot of local. He's talking to 2-3 governors a day. He's doing roundtables, Zoom calls. He's doing with local officials. And a lot of it's being done in those 6 battleground states that we have going forward. The other good news for us today, folks, is today, election's not today, but today we win control of the United States Senate. Something that I hold dear. I can tell Congressman Scott does as well. What they have been able to do, the federal judiciary with the Senate and Mitch McConnell, has been nothing beyond just a disgrace. And today, we got a very tough incumbent race. Of course, Doug Jones, Alabama, presidential year, but we're only down 3. He's the only Democrat. Peters was close. It's no longer in Michigan. And so we've just got to get Doug Jones in. But worst case, we don't win Doug Jones. We need to win 4. Today, we're up. Arizona substantially. Colorado substantially. We're up in Montana. We're up in Maine. We're up in North Carolina. We're up in 5. And we have more competitive races in Georgia, Iowa. And if Chris Kobach becomes a Republican nominee in Kansas, we'll win Kansas, just as we won the governorship with Laura Kelly back in 2018. So, we've got a lot of great things going, organized. Virginia's got to lead the way. We're the only blue state in 2016, if you remember. I think we're going to add Florida to that mix. In North Carolina, as y'all remember when I ran 7 years ago, the Republicans had all statewide, only 32 Democrats in the House of Delegates. After 6 years, we've now got everything back. I think North Carolina is the next state. Governor Cooper will be reelected, the Democratic governor who barely won last time. He's up 13 points. And Cal Cunningham, the U.S. Senate candidate, is up 8 over incumbent Tillis. And most importantly for me, I think we're going to win the state Senate because I care about redistricting. And when these maps are being drawn, we at least have 1 Democratic chamber in North Carolina. So what do I worry about? Number 1, Trump is nuts. And there is no low that Trump won't go. So we're trying to figure, it's hard to get in his mind to figure out what things he's going to try and do before the election. He's going to try and wrap China, all about China. Biden, Hunter Biden went over to China. Well, yeah, Ivanka Trump went over, got 17 trademarks out. We can handle that. But the thing I'm most concerned about is what he's going to try and do on voter disenfranchisement. They're trying to screw around with vote by mail in all of these states. He's got his ally now at the U.S. Post Office. They're trying to defund parts of the post office to make it impossible for vote by mail. This is the one thing they're going to try and do. If you thought Russia was active in 2016, so much more in 2020. They bet on Trump in 2016, and that has paid off like never before for them. They're going to be back at it. So another group, as you know, I started was the NDRC with Eric Holder. We have filed, I think, 21 lawsuits, I believe we have going right now. We're filing suits everywhere. So we're on the ground. We're thinking, figuring out what needs to be done. But it's, we've got to win this election. If we can win the White House and then pick up control of the U.S. Senate, and boy, oh boy, oh boy, think of the things we could get done on the environment, election reform across the country. I mean, guns, so many things we can get done. What we were able to do in Virginia, we could now do for the nation. So That's where we are today. Feel good, but we got a lot of work ahead of us. And I just thank everybody on the call for all the great work that they've done to get us in the position we're in today.
All right, Governor, you're not here to make any announcement, right?
I'm focused on Joe Biden in 2020. I think it's likely I will run for governor in 21, but I want to focus on 2020.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All hands on deck.
Well, I'll be honest with you, because as you all know, we're going to have a very, very tough economy. When we went in before, if you all remember, I inherited from the Republicans the largest deficit in the history of the state. We were able to leave the largest surplus 4 years later, most jobs ever created, 1,147 new companies we brought back. Our economy is going to be in tough shape again because of COVID. We're 10.3% unemployment. But, those are the challenges. Those are the things I love to do. I was the most traveled governor in American history, to 35 trade missions to countries all over, brought business back. I'd have to double that record. But, we got to win in 2020. That's the big issue. But we got to keep everything going, what we've got going here in Virginia. We cannot take anything ever for granted. We can never take our foot off the gas. And we just got to take it to the next level. But it would be fun working with a Democratic legislature.
Yeah.
I did have a record 120 vetoes from the Republican legislatures, but
well,
but we're all about 2020, November 3rd, boom.
Yeah. One of the questions that I see in the chat room here, and I'll piggyback on top of it. Some of the public polling is showing a margin of error race in Texas, but the question in the chat room, is Ohio just trending Republican and not in play?
To me, this has a feel of 08 to it. When President Obama was running the general election, states started flipping over to our side. I have that same feeling this time. Ohio, a Texas, a Georgia. You got to remember, only 1 in 3 Americans today support Trump as it relates to dealing with the issue of coronavirus. 1 in 3, 32%. I think folks have given up on him. He can't get over 42, 43%. He's the first president in American history to never once get an approval rating of 50%. Never once. So I think as we get closer, I think more states will probably open up. But I am very focused with the vice president to make sure we're focused on 270 electoral votes. I'm not saying that was a mistake in 2016, but the Clinton campaign did expand, as you know, to Arizona and other states. And if we had just won those 77,000 votes in those 3 states, we wouldn't have Trump and Hillary be president today. So I think we ought to look at all of them. But boy, I'm all about 270. We got to get this White House back.
Absolutely. Another question that was asked in the chat room. I read an article that the GOP is getting ready to restart door-to-door canvassing projects. Do you have any insights on where we as Democrats are going to be able to go as far as hitting doors? I know we got a lot of people itching to do it.
Yeah, I had not seen that yet. I think, and listen, as I say, we've hired these 600 organizers, which are literally sitting in these 6 states, and they're not doing what they normally do, knocking on doors. However, they are doing the voter files. They're doing the vote by mail projects. They are on the phone. It's interesting. More people are answering their phone, and phone conversations are actually longer. So we're having the contact, but we got to get back to door to door. And that will happen, as soon as we all feel it's safe. We're having this debate about whether we will have a convention in Milwaukee in August. I talked to Tom Perez, the DNC chair, the other day. He really wants to do it. I think it's highly unlikely that we are going to bring 50,000 people to Milwaukee in August. I just don't think that's likely. It's my personal opinion, but we'll see. And if we don't have a convention, folks, we'll do it virtually like this. It'll be fine. The Rules Committee platform will be pretty easy, but it'll all work out. We'll get the TV time. We'll figure that out. But as soon as we think it's safe, and as I say, we've got them. We've hired them. They're sitting in the states ready to go, and nobody wants more out in the field than I do. And as soon as we get the word that it's okay to do it, but a lot of people, Charlie, are going to take a while to answer their doors. I mean, we're going to be in this, and hopefully don't have the W curve. I hope he doesn't come back. But we got a lot to worry about.
Right, right. And I did also read one of the great things about all this activism that's going on the streets is they got people registering voters out there, and voter registration is actually since in the last week or two really gone up. Voto Latino is already blown through their list, so there's some good possibly coming out of this.
I agree. I think people are energized. People say, well, what's different from 60s? I mean, for the first time, for many people, they actually saw a lynching on national television. And for nearly 9 minutes, they saw this man being murdered, George Floyd. And that has unified folks. We're sick of it. We're not going to take this anymore. The battles that we have had in Virginia on race relations, I just wrote a book on this. And the end of my book talks about politicians talk about this stuff. It's time they start doing something about it. We got to take the monuments down, but for me, it's so much broader than that. We got racism in schools. I mean, if we have schools and equities in different schools with different teachers and different facilities, that's racism. I mean, we got to invest in our children and through education and healthcare. And we still have a corrupt criminal justice system. We got to hit it. I mean, you all remember, I pardoned Lenny Singleton. Lenny Singleton was a young African-American who committed 5 robberies. He was a drug addict, and he stole $511 total, and nobody injured. His sentence in Virginia was 2 life sentences plus 130 years. It's almost unconscionable. So I do think this is an opportunity for us to come together. I think electorally, they want to get rid of Trump. I mean, what he did with the Bible the other day, walking over St. John's Episcopal Church, was one of the most disgraceful moments in our nation's history. And then to have the Joint Chiefs of Staff with him, the SecDef with him. I mean, are you kidding me? But we got to make sure we got the vote by mail going. Because they're going to try and throw a lot of obstacles in our face. I know we've got some great delegates. I know Jay Jones, Nancy Guizon, Joe Lindsey. We need Virginia to move to where 6 other states have gone. We need to do totally vote by mail. Make it easy for people to vote. We have no excuse absentee this year, which is great. But, you look at Utah, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington State, they're 100% vote by mail. Make it easy, because we still have problems in Virginia, and predominantly in the African-American areas, that there are not enough polling machines, and there's long lines, a longer line. We can end all that, but we'll leave that for next session. I've actually talked to Scott Serval, who's worked with me on a lot of the election reform stuff. But, we got to get that vote by mail process going. You saw what happened in Wisconsin. So the governor, Tony Evers, said we can't have the primary because of COVID. It's too dangerous for people to stand in line. The Republican legislature in Wisconsin wanted the election because it was a Supreme Court judgeship up, and they figured, well, if we do it in person, we'll have fewer machines. It's good for us. And the suit actually went to the Wisconsin Supreme Court to stop the governor's order. And no surprise, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, just as Virginia Supreme Court did in my restoration of rights, used it as a political vehicle, not as a judicial vehicle, and ruled in favor of the General Assembly in Wisconsin. The United States Supreme Court disgracefully sided with them. So they had the election, as you know. They went ahead. Milwaukee went from 170 polling stations to 5. What happened? We won. Our Supreme Court justice won by 100,000 votes. And my organizing together team was the folks on the ground who actually ran the campaign. And the sad part of it is, folks, 8 people who worked the polls that day now have COVID. So I'm just telling you, they'll do anything they can. But I think people are unified, and these peaceful protests going on, people get it. And we have one common unifier. We got to beat Trump.
All right, anybody in the room want to ask a question? Come on up to the top. I do see Treasurer Dawn Hester put a comment in there.
Where's Dawn?
She says, Dawn, come on, you want to unmute yourself? And
I don't see her on my screen.
well, She's probably got, let's see, there we go. Dawn Hester's iPhone. Okay, you're unmuted. Dawn, you want to ask? There you go. Whoa.
There we go.
Hey, y'all. Let me, good morning, everybody. I just wanted to say that organizers are working in those states where they are. They're just working by Zoom. And
it's all,
they
the whole
are.
Biden campaign is by Zoom now.
But if people want to do some phone banking, you can go to joebiden.com. You can get a list for Virginia, start making calls, or you can get a list for the battleground states and make calls. You know, they give you the whole script. So everything that you need is right there. But there are a lot of different activities that the campaign is suggesting that we can do locally, because of course, voter registration, voter activation, and getting out the vote right now are a main focus as to how we're going to make sure that we do that. So I just wanted to let people know there is something that you can do now if you're ready to volunteer now. Thank you. Good
Excellent.
to see you.
Good seeing you, Dawn.
It's
Going ready to go on a bike ride?
I was riding while I was listening. I just finished.
Hey, which, by the way, I guess we should point out the news that broke late last night with some of the counting. Joe Biden is officially our delegate. Our nominee. He got the 1990 whatever officially last night. So, you know, that drama is over. But also, let's see. You know, when you talk about things that are going online, I signed up. Beto O'Rourke has an online thing Monday night. They're going to try and call 1 million Texans Monday night to see if they're registered to vote. So that'll be interesting if we have much success there. So I think former Congressman O'Rourke is all into flipping Texas this year.
I tell you, Charlie, every one of the opponents is doing events for Biden today. It's really extraordinary.
Yeah.
Senator Sanders, Warren, all of them have done fundraising events, political events. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I can tell you, I've never seen us as unified as we are today. Now, you know, we've got Trump, and I think for a lot of folks in 2016, well, the Democrats have had it for 8 years. Let's try something new. This business guy over here. Well, now they've seen him for 4 years. And I can tell you, suburban women have given up on him. He has collapsed with those suburban women in just the last 4 days from the Bible incident. It has so alienated so many folks. But look at Virginia. You know, we swept Prince William. We swept Loudoun, 2 traditionally red counties in the last election. People are energized. They're fired up. He has been, I will be honest with it, he has been the greatest get out the vote motivator in the history of the Democratic Party for us. I mean, you just saw it in 17, 18, 19, 20.
Yep, absolutely. Carrie Buchanan, what you got?
Yes, actually, I have a question for Andria McClellan. If she's still on, is she?
Yep, she's still on.
Excellent. My question for Andria is about COVID and Norfolk and the coordination between the various cities. We have a particular zip code that has been more affected in Norfolk than the others, and I'm just wondering if that's because the jail is counted in there, or is it because of issues of inequality and, you know, what really has bothered me, and I think this is true for Governor McAuliffe or anything, is the fact that we've got essential workers who are on poverty line wages. And that's just not an acceptable thing. So I'm just looking to see if you have any information, Andria, on what is going on the COVID side for that population.
Sure. It's a great question, Carrie. I spoke with Dr. Demetria Lindsey, who's our public health director for both Norfolk and Virginia Beach, and I specifically asked her about the disparity of COVID cases of people of color. We talked about the zip code. We talked about the jail as well. Some folks use the jail as their address. Some people use they have another address. So I don't have a specific element there. But in terms of what she is doing in the public health department in Norfolk, is we're trying to be more active in terms of testing and communication in the community. people who are experiencing homelessness, working with our Black churches. We put out a video of our leaders in the African American community all getting tested, from Joe Dillard from the NAACP, a variety of our pastors, to illustrate that it's not something to be feared. And so a lot of it's communication. Of course, there's issues as it relates to access to healthcare. That's a huge element there. So we're trying to get more information out through the churches and elsewhere about going to the public health department for free testing and free services there. But it is an issue. And so we are trying to be as proactive as possible. And I think all the communities around the country are facing this. But it is definitely shows the disparity. It lays bare the disparity that we have in terms of healthcare in our country. So Norfolk is no different. We are just trying to be proactive in terms of communication. But I'd welcome any feedback or input on how you think we could be doing things differently or better.
Yeah, thanks. Betty Potts, what you got? Betty, have you unmuted yourself to ask the question?
Okay, there we go.
There we
Sorry.
go.
I'm using my phone this morning rather than my laptop because I'm kind of on the go. Getting back to the voter registration and the help that we're going to need in Norfolk for this upcoming election. Several groups, fraternities, and just different individuals have expressed a desire to help us with voter protection, which will be very much needed at key precincts in Norfolk. So we definitely need some people from the committee who have worked precincts before to work with some of the people that are coming from the outside, this will be the first time really being engaged in voting engagement efforts, at precincts. So I'm excited about the outpour of people willing to help. So I think we're going to be okay with manning polls in November, but leading up to that effort with absentee voting, I will hopefully things will be open this time. This last effort, I think we did a pretty good job with absentee voting with our senior facilities. We're going to pour into that effort even more coming up, making sure our seniors get their absentee ballots in place. Definitely appreciate, again, Stephanie Owls doing absentee voting training with our committee. We will be doing that maybe a couple of times again prior to November. Barbara Clear stepping up with civic engagement. Barbara, look for, if she's on the line, look for more invitations to speak to our civic leagues about voting in Norfolk. So if anyone is on the call, you know how to reach me. If not, reach Charlie and he will be in contact with me. We'll need all hands on deck.
Yep, thanks. Yeah, Governor Betty Potts is a former chair of Norfolk, and she heads up her voter registration effort, and she does wonderful, wonderful work in that regard. In this last May election, going into the senior facilities and high-density housing, trying to make sure everybody who never voted absentee in their life were able to try and get that done. A question for you in the chat room, Governor, from Terrence Anderson. It's kind of a scary one, but what do you think the long-term effects might be on all these unqualified by the ABA judges that have been put on the judiciary by Trump and the Republican Senate?
Devastating. The progress that we'll make in this election, if we can get the Senate and the White House, we can begin to make some progress. But these judges they have put on, generally 40 years old and ultra conservative, I mean, they're going to be on the bench for another 25, 30 years. It's a real damaging. The Supreme Court has become a political operation. It's really disgraceful to see what's happened in the Supreme Court. We need to make sure Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she's 87. We got to keep her healthy. And Stephen Breyer is 82. I bet you Justice Thomas resigns this fall would be my guess. And Mitch McConnell will ram through a young conservative who will be there for a long time. So, you know, nothing we can do about it. We can begin to, when we get it, begin to bring some like-minded judges in. But I can't stress how devastating this is going to be for a very, very long time. He's put all these judges in, and they're young and they're very conservative. But you know, we got to win and continue to build up the benches. We go literally build up the bench as we go forward. He just put someone up here in the Court of Appeals here in D.C., which is the second highest court in the land. The person had never been in a courtroom before. I mean, I could give you chapter and verse of these justices, but the rollback. They want to roll back Roe v. Wade. That is their real strategic objective, which I assume in the not this term, the one they're hearing now, but the next term, I assume is when they're going to take a real frontal approach to eliminate Roe v. Wade. I mean, there's some real challenges coming to us. But let's continue. You know, we win elections and do what we got to do. Then Congressman Scott can put up some great legislation. We can continue to put up laws and make it much more difficult for them to overturn. That's what we have to do.
Our second congressional district chair, Sandra Brandt, what you got?
Good morning. I just want to say that in reference to something that Betty Potts said, we are working hard on voter protection. We have a council in the state. We are having weekly phone calls. We are doing targeted absentee balloting in various districts across the state on June 23rd. And we're doing voter registration across the state as some of the rallies that are being taking place in various and sundry areas. This weekend, we have a whole bunch of Blue Wave volunteers in Virginia Beach that are going to be working really hard on making sure that they get out and give people information on how to register to vote, change your address, or whatever. So if anybody wants to work with us on voter protection from any of the cities or Norfolk, we'd love to have you. And I'll just put a shameless request out. I am running for the Democratic National Committee, and I would be honored to have anyone's vote on this call who is a delegate to our state convention. And if you want more, just go to my website, sandrabrandt.vote, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, thank you. I'm pretty sure you got my support. All right, is this Marie, M-A-R, Mary or Marie's phone? Who's Marie?
Mary.
Yeah,
Mary.
hey, Mary.
How are you?
Welcome.
I am a first-time member, and I just wanted to tell the governor, I was in your class of '79 at Catholic University.
No way.
Yes.
Golly.
Yes. Yes, I got my bachelor's degree there in nursing.
We didn't dig, did we?
Oh, no.
I'm sure we had some beers together at the Rathskeller.
I was going to say, I learned the definition of Rathskeller, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. We're so from Ireland to New York. Who knows what we can do here?
And it's funny. A year ago today, I was in Dublin because I went up to County Donegal for my family for a family wedding. So I was very interested in your family. I assume that's your family from Dublin.
Most of the McCalls are from County Cork, a place called Upper Church.
Oh, but I mean the other people who were on the phone call.
Oh, they're
today.
From Dublin. Yeah, they're from Dublin.
Yeah.
But are they your relatives?
Well, you know, going back to the Celts, everybody was doing something with somebody.
Yeah.
We're all relatives.
Yeah, we're all related.
Yeah, we're all related.
So this is my first joining in, and I'm Andria McClellan's neighbor, and so I've become, she's helped me with lots of thought processes with the Democratic Party, and I'm happy to join you guys. I'm working full-time as a nurse practitioner, and I'm embedded in an F-22 Raptor unit over at Langley Air Force Base as their first civilian provider. Great. So I have a very interesting background, and my father was the only white lawyer for the NAACP in the 60s. So we did all the marches and everything in the 60s.
Yeah, well, welcome, and we look forward to you to getting active and involved.
I will.
One of our area chairs, my good friend Nick Jones. Let me see. Nick, what you got?
Good morning. I'd just like to say that the Teamsters are fired up about this next election, and I've been talking to Teamsters all over the country, as well as other union leaders, and we're ready to get this thing started. We got to change the Labor Relations Board.
Yeah, that's for sure. You bet.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, Nick.
Yeah, and I didn't see Lawrence Brown on the call, but you know, the firefighters were one of the first to step up to get behind Joe Biden. Larry, president of our firefighters local. Another member of our executive committee, Carolyn DePalma.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Just a quick question back to the judges we were discussing.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned about what's going to happen, obviously, between now and January, as far as the Supreme Court. What are the odds of an expansion of the Supreme Court in the next 4 years?
Adding to the judges?
Yes.
Well, if I had anything to do with it, the day after the election, I think number one, Chuck Schumer, we ought to get rid of the filibuster rule in the U.S. Senate. And if we need to add justices to the Supreme Court, we should do it. I come from that school of thought. We win elections and stymie us. And when you got power, you ought to use the damn power. And
yeah. What kind of approval process is necessary to get another judge on?
It's pretty simple if the president wants to expand the court.
Oh, good.
So, but listen, we got Mitch McConnell. I mean, they have just whipsawed us on judges. I'm still mad over Merrick Garland. I mean, this poor man has been there for 15 months without even a hearing. And then McConnell says, well, if there's an opening, which I think will be with Justice Thomas, he'll ram it through in a month.
Absolutely.
They use power. We've got to use power when we have it.
Amen. Amen.
Thanks, Governor.
You bet.
All right. Let's see. TR. Let me see. Who is that? Masking young. Oh, where's the name? Lower the hand. Oh, Tim Rothkeb. I'm sorry. I should have known that. Tim, what you got?
Well, it's not so much a question, but I'm going to repeat something I said in the chat, which is I have a plan for my precinct, which I'm calling, since we can't go large, I'm calling it go small. Since I don't think we're going to be able to knock doors, I'm going to ask you, all the people that I have contact information for through emails in my precinct, to talk to people over the fence, talk to people, where you can still maintain your social distancing, and it will allow people to be a substitute for knocking doors. And I'm hoping other people will join in on that, asking people so that we can expand the information and make these personal connections that I feel are so important in elections. So if the governor, I would encourage you to, or if you think I'm right, share that with other people. Let's get it going everywhere, but let's go small.
All right.
Listen, I agree. And as I say, next week we'll announce our team here in Virginia and we'll be up and running. And we really got to use this 2020 to build our list, be creative, because we got 2021 right around the corner. Now we're going to have a big turnout this year. And as you know, it's very difficult. Only once in 44 years, when a party wins the White House, the other party wins the governor's mansion. Yours truly is the only one to break that rule, 44. It's hard. And we've got to make sure that we're building those lists this year for all of our candidates in 2021. We got to keep the House of Delegates. I just announced the House caucus the other day. I got one of my donors to give us $1 million. What we're going to do in Virginia is the day after the Biden election, we're going to hire 20 of the best campaign managers in America. And I'm going to have 20 of the House of Delegate races. They're going to run their campaign. So already paid for. We've already got the money to pay the best staff to run the campaign. So we got to do a lot this year to get us prepared for next year, because we made such great progress. We just can't, because listen, the economy is going to be in tough shape. Joe Biden is going to face some really tough challenges. And what I worry about in Virginia is we can't sustain the deficit that this nation has incurred. It's going to, at some point, there's going to be deficit reduction. I worry because Virginia is the #1 recipient of Department of Defense dollars. Military is going to be at the top of that for the federal government to look at. So we got to be strategic, and we're going to face headwinds. We're going to face challenges. We've got to make sure we're using 2020 to prepare ourselves for 2021, because there will be a lot of headwinds economically facing us.
Hey, Jeff Charity, what you got?
Good morning, everyone. I have a question. Personally, I want to know, you spoke earlier, Governor, regarding pardons and criminal justice reform. It's my thing.
Good.
I am currently, the chair, Criminal Justice Board in the city of Chesapeake. Now, I have my own organization for, re-entry and all that sort of thing. But I cannot myself get a pardon. I'm a convicted felon. 20 plus years ago, my rights were restored under your administration. I put in my petition for a simple pardon just before you went out, and I am unable, to do, unable to get any results for myself. Now, I register voters. I do rights restoration. I assist, and many of the people, many of these people know me, and they know the good work that I do. I'm a loyal Democrat. I called it for Joe Biden last year before he even entered. I knew he was going to enter. And I know he's going to win with our support. But with all of the things that permeate into the other areas of social justice, I would hope that individuals like myself who, had some offense when they were younger and in school, and it has impacted and still continues to this day to impact my ability, even though I've turned my life around, I'm doing the right thing. I'm somewhat successful. I'm a good Catholic, and I support all of you. I'm a loyal Democrat, but I submit legislation that gets killed in committee, in the General Assembly, but I still try and fight the good fight. I have a young son in college. He's a sophomore at Radford. I have another younger son, Justin, and a daughter, Grace, and I want to see them, have a fair shot. And I would like to be able to say that the people that I support have contributed to that, and I would hope that as I continue to petition Governor Northam and Secretary Thomason, both of whom know me.
Very good, Jeff.
I still can't even get a pardon in that way. So if there's anything, any of my good friends would be able to do to help me out. Joe, you know me.
Yeah. Jeff, hey, Jeff, I just went ahead and unmuted Joe Lindsey. I don't know if he wants to chime in here. Joe, did you want to chime in?
Sure. I just say to you and many others who are similarly situated that we hear you. And and in this last election cycle, there had been legislation advanced that is now before the Code Commission. There's been legislation that's now in the study. We're definitely going to be looking at this ideal of pardons. We're going to be looking at this ideal of being able to mete out mercy with compassion under circumstances where persons have righted their ship and they're now doing the right thing. So it's been a fight that has had a lot of headwind from my Republican counterparts, but now that we've taken control of the General Assembly, now that we're putting the committees together that deal with these issues, like the Crime Commission, the Commission on Codes, the Courts Committee. I believe that you're going to see more legislation that comes back and brings into the fold some of our people who have been disenfranchised and been put out on the margins. And I think that if you look at what comes next year, that you're going to be very pleased with what we do.
Great news.
Thank you.
Joe.
Thank you.
Jeff, why don't you do me a favor? Get your pardon application to Charlie. He'll get it to me. I know a few folks on the pardon board, since I appointed most of them. But listen, you're preaching to the choir. As you know, I did more pardons. I think Governor, if you add all the other governors, add up their pardons, they don't do what I did. I'm a big believer in second chances, restored more felon rights. So, I get it. I mean, and we just got to speed the process. And one thing, before they can do it, they have to have some type of investigation done.
Right.
We didn't have enough folks. So I put in the budget to add more. And I know that Joe Lindsey, something he also agrees with. The more investigators we can get there, the faster we can speed these things through.
Well, I got a bunch of other people with their hand raised, wanting to ask a question, Governor, but it is 10 o'clock. I don't know what your time is.
A couple more minutes, they got questions. I'll be glad.
Let's go. My vice chair, I would be in deep trouble if I didn't get my vice chair of the committee in here to ask her question. So, Atoy.
Hello, how's everybody today?
Great.
Now, there are a couple of things. I do have a question for Terry.
Yep.
One is, here again, kind of piggybacking off of Jeffrey Charity. When a person has, if they were a convicted felon 40 years ago, but their issue was a violent crime, okay? Because I know that someone that was convicted of a violent crime, theirs was handled a little bit differently. Is that correct?
I mean, so you've got the parole board who, pardon board who looks through all these. The more severe, obviously, the offense, the more they're going to look at it. But, as I say, something 40 years at the time they've been a model prisoner. I mean, they're.
I mean, 40, because here again, I know someone that 40 years ago got into trouble. And after that, literally the most they've ever had was a traffic ticket. Okay. Because that clean after that issue from 40 years ago. But because it was a violent crime, they were still, they still felt like they had an issue. But my other question, and when it comes to Biden's vice presidential pick, which way do you think, even though I know it's his decision, but right now, with everything that's going on,
great question.
With everything that's going on.
Well, I'll tell you where I advised the vice president before all this was going on. I know that Jim Clyburn and myself were both very aggressive with the vice president. I thought it should have been a woman of color, was always my preference for. I just think it would be energizing, exciting. I also, as you all know, I wanted to run for president last year. And I spent a year on the road, but I went over a year ago, April, so about whatever it was, 15, 16 months ago, and I had dinner with Joe. I spent 3.5 hours, and I went through all his polling data with him. I knew Iowa, New Hampshire would be tough, but my big place, because of my restoration of rights, criminal justice reform, I thought I'd have a good shot at South Carolina. Biden's polling at that time showed me that he had a 95% approval in the African-American community. And he sort of hinted to me at that time, this was 50, that Jim Clyburn was going to endorse him. So I saw the tea leaves, made my decision. My point being is, I think the vice president, he is the nominee today because of the African-American community.
That's right. That's right.
That's my opinion. He's going to pick who he's comfortable with. I would find it surprising if it isn't, you got Kamala Harris, you've got Val Demings. You got a whole group of Stacey and so forth. I'd be surprised if he doesn't pick an African-American woman.
Now, one of the things when I have been in the process of reaching out to other people, even when it comes to coverage with our precincts, what I have discovered especially during this time, people, especially people of color, are so angry and so hurt that even if they cannot concentrate on what they want to do, one thing is certain. Black people will show up this year matching Obama's numbers.
Yeah.
Because the anger and the hurt is such a driving force this year.
Yeah.
And with what Trump has done to this nation, I honestly believe that we're going to rival Trump's numbers. I mean, granted, yes, I take nothing for granted, not at no time.
Yep.
However,
I agree.
This man is, like you said earlier, he's doing our work for us.
Yeah.
And he is putting a fire under people, or what they call a fire in the belly, or he is lighting a fuse under people that they've never felt before.
He blasphemed the name of George Floyd yesterday at that press conference. Just unbelievable.
It is.
All right. Anyway, let's, Bobby, do you got something, Bobby, and then Terry, to wrap this thing up? You want anything to close on, Bobby?
No, Terry, could you give us those 6 battleground states again?
Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, Arizona. That's what I would call the top tier.
Mm-hmm.
We're ahead in all 6 of those. I mean, thankfully for us folks, we're not viewed as battleground. And, in 2016, I mean, in fact, I told Hillary in January, don't even come to the state, we're going to win it. She came once, if you remember. In fact, down in Norfolk with Dorothy to do a military event with Hillary. But those are the 6 sort of key battleground states. More may be added, but, if we win those 6, lights out, you're 330 plus.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. You want to wrap it up, Governor? And thank you very, very much for coming and spending your morning with us. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, well, thank you. Listen, I love being with you. I love Norfolk. I love the Hampton Roads region. I always say the potential of that region, working together, nothing can rival it. With all the assets, with the military, with the water, everything that you have, really, it's a dynamic place. And I just want to thank all of you for making a dynamic blue place a Democrat. And this is a big year for us. And we've got to, whatever we were going to do, we got to double our efforts, because this guy on the other side is mean, dirty, miserable, thieving. He'll do anything to win. He'll launch a nuclear weapon in North Korea. It doesn't matter. He doesn't care. And we just got to be prepared. We got to think out of the box electorally. We got to do things differently.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Game on.
All right. Let's get it done. Norfolk will do its job.
Sleep when you're dead.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. God bless.
Thank you.